Hello guys and welcome to a whole new couch episode. Today we're going to be learning how to be a police officer.
We'll be leveling an entire city.
And we will be here once again reminding you that you are indeed old. Stay tuned, we'll be right back.
And we are back to talk about some very nice and good old games. And before we get right into it, let's all remember the very important information we got 2 weeks ago. DJ loves My Little Pony. So, DJ,
Oh man, come
give
on
us a
again.
I'm not going to let this go away. So just give us a game.
How is that any relevant every time we start a new couch episode?
Oh, it is.
Why? I mean,
It
why?
is.
Why?
It is.
I feel like putting that meme of Ryan Reynolds, like, but why? You know,
Oh,
like in
yeah.
Harold and Kumar. Harold and Kumar.
Well, just
Go
because.
to White Castle.
Just because. So, give us a game and we'll set you
Yeah,
free.
let's kick this off because too many conversations about My Little Ponies and stuff like that. What a bloody idiot! All right, guys, let's kick off with one of the great ones, and I'm going right into it because it's one of those that it's kind of a long one, and we have some really good details here to go about. So
Point and click,
the game
right?
I'm going to be okay, yeah, today you're right. Okay. But I haven't talked about point and clicks games in like I don't know how many couch episodes, like a ton of them, right?
Now that you mention it, yeah.
So yeah, exactly. I haven't brought up a point and click for a while now.
Unleash
So,
the DJ.
yes, unleash the DJ. Unleashing the DJ today, we're going to be talking about Police Quest 1. It was in 1987. Oh, Jesus, I even forgot about the date of the game. 1987, it for PC MS-DOS was developed and published by Sierra Online. Now, if you guys remember, on the 9th couch episode, I talked about another game of the genre called, or in the same genre called Blue Force. I kept talking about how very accurate the simulation of police enforcement procedures would please the mystery/crime literature and game fans for that matter. But I never actually came around to talk about this game that is, it's unmissable and for the most obvious reasons. I tend to leave the most obvious games aside because we know that almost everyone played them, and talking about them here probably wouldn't be such a great breakthrough. But I think it's time to bring, today this 34-year-old gem that, definitely needs to be talked about. So Police Quest 1, In the Pursuit of the Death Angel, or PK1, as many of us fondly remember it. If you remember on the MS-DOS, it was called PK1, the file names and so on. It's a point-and-click adventure game, or should I say a text-based adventure game with some graphics? More on that later. We take the role of Officer Sonny Bonds, a 15-year-old police veteran in the fictional town of Lytton in California. Sonny is assigned to traffic duty when he's called out to a car accident that turns out to be an homicide. Lytton PD is at hand with a drug problem where more and more teenagers are consuming cocaine, and Sergeant Dooley, Sonny's supervisor, wants everyone to track down the supplier, the infamous Jesse Baines, the Death Angel, which gives the name, to this wonderful title. As the game progresses, our officer will advance from patrol to temporary narcotics agent and also undercover agent in the hopes of catching the biggest criminal of all history of Lytton City. So, as I was mentioning just a few seconds ago, why is it a text-based adventure and not exactly a point-and-click? Well, you see, much like Leisure Suit Larry or Space Quest 1, all the Sierra classics, all these games were developed under Sierra's proprietary engine called AGI, or Adventure Game Interpreter. And despite this game ticks all the boxes in terms of point-and-click adventure, it actually lacks exactly that. It's not point or click. So all the actions that we have to, that we would like the character to do, except for the movement, because those were, you're using the arrow keys, we would have to write them as commands, like, open door, look at something, pick up something. And one that, for example, I will never forget, that took me ages to find out because of my poor English back then, was buckle seatbelt. And why was it buckle seatbelt? It was not in Police Quest, actually. It was in Space Quest. And I'm not sure if it was the first or the second. There was a part, there was a spaceship. And before you could actually use the spaceship, you had to buckle the seatbelt. Now, I had no idea that the term for putting the seatbelt on, I think put seatbelt on also worked, but I didn't know the expression for both of them. And so basically I ended up getting stuck here for a while because I had no idea how to write that. So, you know, pretty much like we would do in other games like Zor or The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. So Zork, actually not Zor, Zork. These were all
awesome.
text-based adventures and so on. 5 years later, this game saw its re-release with an enhanced version, which was VGA 256 colors, and now finally adopting the more traditional point-and-click style that we would see, you know, all throughout the 90s and for the rest of the decade. I need to tell you that, you know, there's a lot to talk about this game, but that, you know, Police Quest and all the stories around its development, the involvement of the former police officer Jim Walls, that was, you know, kind of a pillar into the realism of all the procedures and actions of this game. We would need a whole couch episode to talk about this, and if you are interested in this and other Sierra titles, I really suggest that you check out It's a Pixel Things documentary on the history of Sierra, and you know, you'll be absolutely amazed with some of the things that they came up with, you know, since the early days until what they actually accomplished later on. And, you know, Sierra will be always remembered as one of the, you know, the pioneers of the point and click genre, you know, as well as LucasArts and stuff like that. But definitely, you know, Sierra deserves to be there on the spot.
They kickstarted it.
Yeah, exactly. So, you know, to wrap this up, the Police Quest collection is actually available in GOG for €8 and includes the first four games of the series. Regarding the Police Quest 1, it includes the EGA and VGA versions of both this game, as well as the remaining games that, to me, you know, they were equally as good and really deserve a spot as most acclaimed MS-DOS games of all times. And, you know, as I said, goes without saying, Sierra did an amazing job with these titles. And for me, especially these initial ones where we had a lot of the component that we had to integrate, you know, with commands and stuff like that, they really were a Kickstarter for people like me at that age to, you know, that drove me into learning English. And I keep saying this all the time, but definitely the fact that back then there was no Portuguese adaptations of anything like MS-DOS.
Like
later on there was, you know, I remember having DOS 6.2 in Portuguese, which wasn't even Portuguese from Portugal, it was actually Portuguese from Brazil. But most of the time we would have to deal with this in English, you know, the games, you know, there was very little games in other languages, and if they were, they would be like German, French, at least in Europe, German, French, and Spanish. You know, Portugal was never deserving of any specific language ports or stuff like that. But anyways, guys, Police Quest 1, it really, I mean, I'm sure that many of you already played it, but if you didn't, just explore the series, because the whole thing from the first until the fourth, and then if you want to explore the fifth and the sixth game, which is under the SWAT series, so it's Police Quest SWAT, those are slightly different. They involve other mechanics, but they are also, you know, equally awesome. Both the packs for both the SWAT and the Police Quest collection are available for the same price, €8 each. So it's a good €16 if you spend in GOG. So you know, guys, give it a go, because it's a must play.
It is indeed. That's an awesome.
What about you, Blade? What do you have for us right now?
I'm going to talk about a much simpler game, but a very addictive one I played on the NES back in 1985. When this game
it's either NES or arcades, right? It's either one or the other.
Yeah. No, and one specific information. You talked about us learning English to play those games. People need to understand one thing. People from our generation that played games learned English from games, not school. People need to understand that.
I mean, there wasn't even English at the level of school that we were. I mean, nowadays, English is actually taught
very early
even
on.
To kids on elementary school, like 3rd grade or something like that. They start with basic
then.
Concepts and stuff like that.
Not back
but
then.
But back then, the first time I had contact with a foreign language was on my 5th grade. That's when I started learning French. Oui, 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 parce que je parle français, hein.
Hello.
Oh, je parle français. Très bien, hein? Hein?
Not me.
Oh là là.
So, 1985,
Yes, please.
NES. Let's talk about a game called City Connection. You played this one?
Yeah, no.
No. Okay. No. Okay. So now this was a very simple game where you played a blue-haired lady that was just traveling around the world in her car in hopes to find true love. Now you go to the game and you don't understand anything that this is what the game is all about, because you just have like a side-scrolling scenario that just goes in a loop where you have several levels with spaces between them except for the ground level, where you just pass with your car. It will start changing the floor's color, and what's your goal? To change the color of the whole scenario in every level, avoiding first the police cars that were trying to catch you, and the only thing you could do to them was drop some oil cans to get them spinning and just kick them out of the scenario. And then you would have some cats that would show up in the middle of the scenario with waving some flags, and you just couldn't get rid of them. You just had to avoid them. But the whole goal of this game was just to go from one side to the other, jump from level to level, and just cover the whole floor in 16 levels, I think, and you would travel around several very known cities in the world to do this. This looks like a very simple game if you haven't played it, but it was quite addictive and it was quite fun. There isn't much to talk about it except just to tell everyone, just try this game and play it. If you look at the gameplay, it really looks terribly simple, but it's really, really enjoyable.
You know,
and fun.
I was hearing you talking about that game, and you know, it seems to me that for what you've spoken about this game, it's really terrible.
This game was so cool.
No, I'm joking.
Seriously, on
I
paper,
never played the game.
On
I would
paper,
never say
this
that.
sounds really weird. The game sounds weird when you talk about it, but when you play it, it's quite addictive and fun. And when you start getting a lot of police cars on the scenario and those cats waving flags, and you're just panicking, trying to cover the whole floor, well, the game gets really, really intense. And you have a time limit. If you don't do this under the set time, spikes come out of the floor and you lose. This was as simple as, yeah. This was this aggressive. But seriously, try this one. It's terribly simple, looks terribly weird, but it's addictive and fun.
I gotta tell you, no, I would never say that the game is terrible. Of course, I was just joking. But no, I never played this one. I mean,
but try it, seriously.
Again, I keep mentioning this, but you know, it was all limited to the 999 in one cartridge that I had for
it was probably there
for my clone. No, probably
you just
was.
had to scroll too much to get there.
Yeah, this is what we talked about the other day. It was probably so down there, or so much, you know, buried into all those 47 copies of Mario and I don't know,
if
57 variants of
it is there. You should look.
Or the 57 variants of Battle City that I would never actually be able to play it.
Yeah.
But, you know, it is what it is. You know, thanks for bringing it up. I did look at the gameplay online. I can't say that it's like it mixes the concept of racing game with platforms, maybe?
Kinda, yeah. No, but give it a go. Give it a go if you get a chance. It's fun.
Yeah. I usually say that the 90s was the era that, you know, they would throw everything into a game because, you know, pretty much nobody would care. Just throw it in, and if it works, it works. Yeah. But sometimes the 80s also have that. I mean, although this is from the late 90s, sorry, the early 90s.
85.
85, exactly. Early 90s, 85. Correct. That's exactly it. Sorry, I didn't hear the release date.
You're not making sense.
Anyways,
give us a game.
No, I'm not. So going into that racing theme, but you know, leaving the platforms and looking for love and stuff like that.
Okay.
I'm gonna bring up one of those, and of course it's a racing game because I'm also a big fan of racing games, and I haven't, you know, I don't hide it here. Sometimes if you see me online, I'm probably gonna be playing Forza Horizon or playing F1 2019 or 2020. But you know, racing games are very, very important for me, and one of those that it was kind of like at the same time that I tried, I think I played this game at the same time that I played 4D Sports Driving, the mythical 4DS. And I'm going to talk about Hard Drivin from 1990 for PC MS-DOS. And
No
this
idea
was
what that is.
developed. No, exactly. So this was developed and published by Atari. So, in its essence, this was actually originally released by Atari for an arcade in 1989. And this was astonishingly, groundbreaking in terms of this game. It's one of those that I played much later than it was released. Obviously, not only there was the time difference between 89 and 90, so it was 1 year before it was ported into PC. But I had my first PC when I was like 10, and this was around 1993. So many of these games were already, surpassed by other games, and there was more advanced stuff in the market. But I was a sucker for racing games, and the fact that these games were older, most of them would fit in either one floppy or sometimes one floppy, 1.44 megabyte floppy could handle 2 games, even if they were small enough.
Or more.
So yeah, exactly. So this was that kind of stuff that I would have, because the budget was limited to buy floppy disks, because they would still cost some money. They were not that expensive, but still would cost some money. And then I would try to get as many games as possible in one, through things like ARJ, if you remember the compressing mechanism called ARJ or application.
LZH.
I only used ARJ,
later on.
which had a huge, it's such a complicated syntax to memorize so that you could unpack it.
Yeah,
But anyways,
yeah.
so Hard Driving was originally released for the arcades in '89, and can you imagine? It was with polygons in 1989. This is not. We're not talking about 91, 92, 93 Virtua Fighter, Sega Saturn. We're talking about 89. This is quite the achievement, but wait, because there's more. The arcade cabinets of this had a steering wheel with force feedback. Force feedback, 1989. You see where Microsoft got the technology for force feedback? There it was.
I found my old force feedback steering wheel like a week ago, and it's still working. It's awesome.
Of course it does. Put it on the RetroArch. RetroArch just basically works with everything. Doesn't even matter what old it is. But again, it was the second ever arcade racing game to be released using polygons, and the first was actually Namco's Winning Run, which probably you've heard about it, which was released just 2 months earlier. So it was just by 2 months that this was not the first ever 3D polygon racing game. So the game, the gameplay kind of throws us into believing that we're driving a Ferrari. And the reason why we don't know is because the car is only referred in the game as an expensive sports car. As with any racing games, we have to go around the track trying to beat other players, but with the addition of obstacles, loops, and so on. It's something that we saw also in 4D Sports Driving, as I was mentioning before. Setting it aside from many games, it featured a realistic transmission with a clutch that you would stall the car if you actually would miss-shift the gear. So you'd have to press the clutch and shift the gear. I honestly, and I'm sorry I don't know about this, guys, but I honestly don't remember when I played it if this was available on the PC, because first of all, I only choose automatic transmissions. It's just way easier, and especially when you're controlling with a keyboard. I mean, if you have a wheel, it's different.
Yeah.
But the other thing is that I guess that this function was only for the arcades, because you had a full cabinet with the steering wheel and with all the pedals. So I guess that most likely it was only for this, but if you actually played this, let us know in the comments. So another innovative feature of this game was the instant replay. After a crash, you would get to see an instant replay, like in many other games later down in the 90s decade. But the thing was that the arcades, people would try to crash in spectacular ways, so that they then could, generate a nice replay. This besides beating the game, the whole fun in the arcade was actually trying to exploit it as much as possible. Kind of like things happen today.
Yeah.
And obviously, I mean, since this is not a real simulation per se, it had a lot of elements of simulation. Like it had physics developed by someone specifically just looking into physics that was, if I'm not mistaken, a race car engineer. Which his father was also a race car engineer back in the 50s. I read the story somewhere, but I don't really remember. There was no damage on the car, let's say, and if you crash, you could always return to the race, as you would expect on any arcade game as such. Unfortunately, it's not available in any digital platforms, but I'm sure that Uncle Google is your friend, and you can always ask for help whenever you need to find something.
Yeah.
Like that's totally normal. So yeah, that's it. Blade, I guess you didn't play this one, so
No, sadly no.
So it's also a good experience for us, right? So you get good
No.
games to play, I get bad games to play. So it's
Seriously, just try that game. It's really awesome.
I'm gonna get so much heat for some people I know by saying that this game is crap. Probably Retro2, Mr. NES, all these people are coming after me saying that no, the game is actually good and stuff like that. I'm sure,
remind him he likes
sure
My Little Ponies. You're stuck with this one.
Okay, fine.
Okay,
Fine.
Okay,
You
I'm
can
going
go
for
on.
the next game. So let's take a dive to the arcades once again, and let's travel back to 1991 and play a game called The King of Monsters. Have you played this one?
No, I don't think I did.
Don't call this a terrible game, or they will level you
No.
down.
Contrary to the other one, when I looked at this game, when you said we're going to talk about it, no, I did not play it. But I found the theme itself very interesting. But go ahead, talk about it and we'll discuss it later on.
So basically, the game this was a fighting game. It was kind of like a wrestling game, but not a wrestling game. It was a fighting game in different cities where you had giant monsters fighting each other in the city. You had 6 monsters, if I recall right. You had a Godzilla-like one. You had a King Kong-like one. You had a big poisonous one. One that looked like a rock golem. A beetle-like guy. And one that looked like a giant superhero. These were the monsters we had. And DJ, take that off your nose. I'm going to get this image up so people can see this.
I was trying to make you laugh.
Oh yeah, I knew you were.
I was trying to destroy this whole life take of this episode.
He was. You tried hard. You really tried hard.
Sure. I'm gonna try something else.
Just don't, please. And
seriously,
go ahead. This was a fighting game that happened in a city. You had the 2 monsters fighting and just leveling the buildings around them. Everything was just crashing down when you crashed the monsters on them. And the goal was to take the health off the other monster and just pin him down for 3 seconds and win the match. And you had to beat them all. And you usually had the army trying to stop you guys, interrupting the fight. You had tanks, you had planes, everything just trying to prevent you from, well, destroying each other and destroying the city. This was quite a fun game because it changed the fighting genre and gave you a whole different perspective how things could happen. And you were having fun destroying a city while fighting the other monster. And the goal wasn't just to take his health down. You had to take his health down, get him to the ground and pin him for 3 seconds. This was quite a different and fun game at the time. And it had
you had
monsters
to pin him for 3 seconds. If you had to pin him for 2 seconds, that's like WWE.
Yeah.
Right.
That's why I said this was like kind of a wrestling game, but it wasn't. But if you haven't tried this one, just do.
It does kind of look like that, right? I mean, if you look at the games, like you throw them into buildings, they destroy buildings. It's kind of like an old school Godzilla versus what's the name?
Kong.
King Kong. Yeah, that.
You had a Godzilla-like and a King Kong-like monster there. They just had different names.
Exactly. I mean, I'm telling you this. I have this feeling that in the creative industry today, I mean, in all areas, we basically recycle stuff.
Yeah, we're grabbing inspiration from the past. Seriously.
I think we do. We basically recycle stuff because I guess there's only so much that you can actually come up with new stuff, you know? I don't know. It's just this is actually a very in-depth conversation that we can have about this.
You know what we could do? We could create a ninja fishing game.
Ninja fishing?
Yeah.
You mean a guy in a ninja suit fishing
with the shurikens just wow, and then just going to grab the fish. This would be fun. See? We're getting ideas. Okay.
I don't see
we
that.
Just gave this idea away.
Okay. If this was like the 90s, that would have worked.
It would.
I'm sure. But nowadays I'm
See?
trying. I'm seeing I'm seeing you going into a board meeting of investors in a software development company and pitching that idea, and everyone either spitting their coffee or starting to laugh uncontrollably
Or
and
throwing
pissing
me
their
out the
pants,
window.
I don't think if you would pitch that up right now, I don't think you would even be worth the effort of throwing out the window. To be honest,
No, I
I'm
think they
joking.
would
This is
put me
silly.
under those crazy people's vests like this, and just send me
Yeah,
away. Seriously.
just lock him away.
Yeah,
Just lock him away, or put him in
solve the
front
problem
of
like that.
Activision.
Oh
let's
yeah,
just put
oh
him
yeah.
in front of Activision Blizzard.
That would be the same exact thing. Nice.
See, I
one,
tried
nice
to
one.
do a joke here.
So let's
All right.
just try and save
Great.
this couch episode.
Yes, we
And
are. I
let's
think
end
we're
it
done
now.
for today. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
just
think we're
don't
good
for-
for today.
Yes, we are. Just don't forget to leave a like, a dislike if you didn't like, but just don't, seriously. Subscribe to the channel. There's a lot of people that watch us every week and haven't subscribed yet. Please do, it helps us immensely. And don't forget, the most important thing you're learning in the couch episode, play good games, and DJ likes My Little Ponies. That's the third reference in one couch episode.
No. Let's stop. Before we actually end this, I have to say something else. We've been noticing our dear friends from South Africa have been watching our videos,
Seriously.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Exactly. I've checked our last 3 English episodes. Actually, no, I checked the last 5. And our friends from South Africa are the majority of the viewers right now.
Yes,
with
they are.
some
It's awesome.
also with some jump, from South Africa to Ukraine, also to Russia. So,
Yeah.
privyet. I don't know how to say hello in Afrikaans. So, sorry, South African friends, I will not be able to say that. But in Russian, I do know how to say privyet. До свидания. Oh, it's okay. So we are now finishing the episode. So guys, you know how it is. До
No one's watching
свидания
this part.
and play a lot.
Yeah.
Game on.
Game on, everyone. Have fun. See you next week.
See you guys. See you next week.